Gonzaga Nation SI. I'm one of your hosts, Dan Dickau, here with the WCC Weekly Recap. It is Monday, February 7th. What a great week of WCC basketball. You're seeing a couple teams making their pitch for at-large berths. Unfortunately, you're seeing one team in BYU in a little bit of a slide that if they're going to stay on that bubble, and we'll talk about bracketology updates later this week. If they're going to stay on that bubble and have a chance, they're going to have to get things turned around in a hurry, and that would be BYU. But let's get right to it. The WCC Weekly Recap. Gonzaga at 8-0, St. Mary's 7-1, now ranked number 22 in the AP poll. So congratulations to the Gales. Coach Randy Bennett is doing a tremendous job there. But again, ranked 22 in the AP poll. That's awesome. USF 6-3, coming off a big win at BYU that we'll touch on in a minute. USD, the Toreros, continuing to play well and surprise people, 6-5. BYU struggling at 5-5. 4 consecutive losses. They're going to have to get things turned around in a hurry. The Portland Pilots 2-6 in Shante Legan's first season. Pacific at 2-6. LMU 2-7. And Pepperdine gets their first win of the year to now finish out at 1-9 leading into this week's games. So quick recap of the past week's games. Thursdays was a nice slate of games. Gonzaga had their first true road game in WCC play. And they go on the road and they win 92-62 against the Toreros. Chet Holmgren had 23 points. He continues to just absolutely kind of continue to progress. Sorry, it's Gonzaga's second road win. They went down to Santa Clara earlier, but it seems like it's been so long since that game. But Chet Holmgren continues to impress, 23 points. You can't say enough about him, the progress that he is making. He's the number one recruit in the country. There's no way he's dropping below the number 3 pick in this upcoming NBA draft. The more I see the progress, the more I see the skill set. If I'm the GM with that number 1 pick, I don't know how I don't take him with that first pick in the draft. He is really showing all of the skill set, all of the uniqueness, the toughness, the intangibles that are necessary to be considered at that number 1 pick. So he continues to drive things for Gonzaga. On Thursday as well, Santa Clara continues to really play well now that Joseph Vrankic is back. They won 79-60 over Loyola Marymount. Pacific got a big win over Pepperdine, 79-76. USF goes into Provo and beats BYU, which is the big one everybody was waiting for. If USF were to lose that game, that would have been a sweep against BYU, and I would think that you would start talking about them as being on the outside, definitely looking in, having a lot of work left to do to be in that NCAA tournament conversation. But I think they're solidly in now. Their net ranking as of now sits at a 32. They've got an opportunity at home against Gonzaga. They still play St. Mary's, and then they've got the WCC tournament to continue to bolster their resume. Now, they're not out of the woods yet. They can't have any bad losses, but they are looking good. And in that game, they absolutely dominated BYU for quite some time. Masalski had a nice game, 16 points. They got production from other guys, Stefanini, Bouye as normal, Shabazz as normal. Just a good all-around win for the Dons on the road in Provo. And then to wrap up Thursday's action, St. Mary's over University of Portland, 75-54. Portland's showing signs. They just, all the newcomers, all the youth, there's a lot of things that need work and help in Portland, but I tell you what, Shante Legans is doing a nice job of getting them to compete because on Saturday night, as we move into Saturday's games, they really had a chance. They put up a dogfight at home against USF, and that was, again, a must-win game for USF. I mentioned the big win against BYU. USF can't have any slip-ups against the bottom of the league, and that would have been big. USF goes into Portland. Portland was in the game late but USF made the plays down the stretch to come out with the victory. They won on the road 74-71. Santa Clara, as mentioned, the strong play. They won at USD 79-66. The odd thing about Santa Clara now is they move into 69 in the net, which means the Gonzaga win on the road earlier this year becomes a net quad one win, which is huge in the selection committee's eyes. A road win, quad one win is big time. And that wasn't just a win, that was a 30-point or 40-point win. So that really shows the dominance of GU in the league right there. Pepperdine got their first win in league. 70-64 over Pacific. Pacific will be at Gonzaga on Thursday night. So Pacific's got to get things squared away in a hurry. And then St. Mary's held off Loyola Marymount 71-60 in Moraga. You know, LMU, they're sitting at 2-7, as we mentioned when we went through the standings. Their talent, their roster balance is better than what their record indicates. They were preseason number 4 in the league. They've had injuries. They've had COVID delays. I feel bad for Stan Johnson in year 2 because he showed a lot of the promise with that team in year 1. Year 2 hasn't gone as well. But that being said, they're going to be a tough out for the higher seed in the WCC conference tournament. And I think big things, much improved things, are on the horizon for Stan Johnson and Loyola Marymount. But the final game to chat about really quickly on the Saturday schedule of games over the past week was Gonzaga going to BYU, which is always a big, excited game for the crowd in Provo. It's an interesting game for Gonzaga fans to look forward to, but it was over in a hurry. I think BYU jumped out 4-0 early, and then Gonzaga went on like a big 15-4 run, something like that, and they kind of imposed their will early, and so really there was no question about win or lose. About 10 minutes in, it was just a matter of what the final score was going to be, and it ended up being Gonzaga with a dominant win, 90-57 in Provo, Utah. Again, Chet Holmgren had a phenomenal game. You had great production from Rasir Bolton, from Julian Strother. Drew Timme had a quiet night, but you know the thing about him is he's a Player of the Year candidate, and when he sees teammates rolling, he's perfectly content and fine to take the back seat and let them go. I think that's one of the beautiful things about this Gonzaga team and program is that is the case, and that has been the case on a number of occasions. But I do think Drew Timme will be an All-American. I do think he still needs to be in strong consideration for Player of the Year candidacy. When you look at some of the other guys that are being mentioned, you know, Johnny Davis at Wisconsin, you're seeing Kofi Cockburn at Illinois, Shibwe at Kentucky, Agbaji at Kansas. Yeah, they're having nice years. Drew Timme is still averaging 19 and 7.5, shooting 60% from the field on a team that's only lost 2 games. Then that's against Duke and that's against Alabama when they were ranked top 15 in the country at the time. So I think you can't sleep on Drew Timme being in that Player of the Year conversation. But I think unfortunately with the emergence of Holmgren, some analysts that don't watch Gonzaga as closely are going to shy away from keeping Timme in the conversation, which I think is unfortunate. But as I mentioned, St. Mary's now top 25. They're ranked 22. Gonzaga's still up there. Texas Tech, a big win earlier in the year for Gonzaga. They're now in the top 10. They're sitting at number 9. UCLA with a little bit of a slide. They dropped to 12. Duke is really hanging tough. By being ranked. Alabama has dropped a little bit in the rankings, as has Texas. But great to see Texas Tech still making climbs in the polls. So that win for Gonzaga becomes an even bigger indicator. When you look at some of the analytics of things, Gonzaga's offense, number 2 in the country in efficiency behind Purdue. I don't know if they're going to catch Purdue because Purdue's at an all-time rate with their offense right now. But what they're doing is spectacular again. I think Gonzaga's led the country in offensive efficiency 3 of the last 4 years. They will at least be in the top 3, barring anything crazy happens over the last 4.5, 5 weeks of the year. So just something to keep an eye on. The net rankings in the league: Gonzaga 1, St. Mary's at 20, USF 32, BYU 45, Santa Clara at 69. I mentioned Santa Clara because it's important. Any road top 75 win is a quad 1 win. And so that's important because that elevates Gonzaga's win at Santa Clara to a quad 1, which is big in potentially securing a 1 seed in the West, as well as potentially the number 1 overall seed. But let's look at this week of games. We're kind of back to almost a normal schedule. We've got 3 games early in the week on Tuesday. We got Pacific at USC, a Pac-12 school. Just both teams probably trying to have an opening in their schedule, want to get at least another game in and kind of work out some of their kinks. So I think that's a great game to see. If you want to watch it, it's on Pac-12 networks. University of Portland at San Francisco on Tuesday, and then a big one, St. Mary's at Santa Clara. So if St. Mary's were to win it, that's a road 1 quad win. If Santa Clara is able to win on their home court, that would be a quad 1 win for them as well, and then their net rankings would really start to climb, and I would imagine them kind of being at that 60 mark. Now, the 60 mark, you're not going to get in the NCAA tournament, but you're moving in the right direction, and that bolsters and helps the league. Thursday's slate of games: Pacific at Gonzaga, USD at St. Mary's, BYU at LMU tries to slow down and stop their 4-game skid, and then Pepperdine at USF. Pepperdine really struggling, but they've got talent, albeit young talent, going on the road. You're curious to see how they're going to compete at USF, a difficult place to play. And then Saturday, tremendous slate of games again. The one to watch is USF at Santa Clara. So again, you're talking about the quad 1 road wins that I talk about that could really bolster USF. It could also really bolster Santa Clara. I don't think, again, it's going to put them in the conversation, but it's going to really help the league by them staying in that quad 1 kind of level. BYU is at Pepperdine on Saturday, LMU at University of Portland, and then the big one. St. Mary's comes to Spokane and plays Gonzaga. So this team that Randy Bennett has, I think, was a little bit undervalued and underestimated coming into the season. But they're sitting at 17-3 on the season, 7-1 in league. They've played a tougher than normal St. Mary's schedule, and they've really looked good throughout the course of this season. Matthias Toss is a big fella underneath, big, strong, wide body. He can post it. He's not necessarily going to stretch you too much from 3, but he's good in dribble ball handoff situations. He's good at manipulating angles on a ball screen to be able to get roll and dive actions. Dukas is continuing to improve. Logan Johnson is a capable scorer on the perimeter. Kuzi is still there as a point guard. And then their young fella, Marshallonis, is a nice young guard who's always in attack mode, has a high IQ. I think he's got a bright future in the WCC. So for Gonzaga Nation SI, I'm Dan Dickau. Lots of great action. We just recapped lots of tremendous action looking forward to this week. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and review the podcast. Not just this WCC Weekly Breakdown, but the shows with Adam Morrison and myself, Sack and Jack, Rob Sacre, our conversations with the Kennel Club. Like, subscribe, and review to all of it. So take care, have a great weekend, and it's shaping up to be another great week of WCC basketball action.